Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here, back in data about Tying the Knot and Amagami Sister, chapter number 178. This chapter is titled, Tying the Skies Together, Stars. And what a beautiful chapter of this series we have this week. I actually just got done rereading it to pretty much do this video. It's normally what I do because, hey, sometimes I forget all of the minute details, especially in the case of the Amagami Sister series, where I am pretty far behind on the upcoming chapters. I've already read all the chapters, so I need to go back and, regain all my thoughts. And it's been a few days since I've really read any part of this series, and going back and reading this chapter, this is a Yae chapter, let me just go and put that out here right now, and this is, such a beautiful Yae chapter, too. Of course, this is the third chapter of the Tying the Skies Together arc, of course, going through, and Uryu making his big decision of, hey, what girl am I going to end up marrying here in a moment, but there's legitimately just so much awesome stuff to this chapter. I mean, the beginning is one part, but definitely the end of the chapter just made me sit here and be like, man, I love the analogy that's being used here, and I love just Yae and, oh gosh, what's his name? Uryu. I don't know why I forgot Uryu's name all of a sudden, but pretty much seeing the relationship that the two of these have, and honestly, I just really just want to talk about this chapter of Tying a Knot for an Amagami Sister, so I'd say let's just go ahead and hop into it, right? But of course, before we can talk about this chapter of Tying a Knot for an Amagami Sister, we of course need to talk about what happened last time in chapter number 177. Of course, we pretty much turned back the clock a little bit to Uryu getting home from the Kyoto University entrance exams, and of course, all of the girls, Yae, Yuna, and Asi were all there saying hey Uryu, we didn't get to celebrate all of these big milestones in your life with you, so let's celebrate them now. So pretty much we got a little bit of a celebration where Uryu celebrated Valentine's Day, passing his entrance exams, and also his birthday all pretty much in one fell swoop. And he got 3 gifts from each of the Amagami sisters here at the moment. And it was a really cool thing where hey, he got a couple's ring from Yae, he got this big scarf from Yuna, and got these nice handcrafted chocolates from Asahi, and also some store-bought chocolates from her also. Right? But of course, that was a really big crux of last chapter, and Uryu just thinking man, I want my life to stay like this forever, but I honestly know it can't go that way, right? But of course, in the fashion of Tying a Knot for an Amagami Sister, we don't start off in that same exact spot. We cut forward to the next evening, or presumably maybe the next evening, maybe not the next evening, but an evening a little bit after that point of where last chapter ended off, right? As we see that Uryu is sitting in the Ichijoji house, and we see there's a bunch of delicately prepared food sitting in front of him, and Uryu is just sitting there very shocked about everybody who's around him, and we see that pretty much everybody associated with Yae and Ichijoji families here, except for Yae herself. As of course, we see Yae's father, Daijiro Ichijoji here. We see, of course, her mother, Ushio Ichijoji, and also Takeda, who is, of course, her butler guy, and, of course, her best friend, Makoto Takeda, or, of course, as Uryu calls her, Makoto Senpai, right? But we see that he's sitting around with all of these people, and we see that Daijiro just says, hey, there's no need to hold back for propriety, or there's no need to hold back for propriety's sake now. Go ahead and eat to your heart's content, young man, right? And we see that Uryu is very freaked out about all of these people being here, pretty much. Is he's really just trying to, stay in the best form he can, while also just, shaking it a little bit, I don't know if I like this too much, right? But pretty much as he's sitting down here, Daijiro just says, hey, after all, your entrance exams are finally over, and I hope you'll be able to relax and let loose tonight, right? And Uryu, of course, making the proper remark, is okay, he wants me to relax here, but how am I supposed to, let it loose in this company? Do you see all the people around me? This is just almost, winding me up tighter, pretty much, right? And Uryu's sort of, a little shocked by all this, but eventually just says, hey, also, why did you decide to invite me out for dinner tonight, right? And Daijiro just says, oh, we just wanted to spend some time talking to you, right? And Uryu's what do you mean talking? As Ushio just says, hey, of course, we want to talk with you about our daughter. And Uryu's a little taken aback by this, as of course, he remembers all the way back to, oh no, what was this arc called? As Uryu remembers all the way back to the end of the 3 Paths Forward arc, where of course Daijiro just said hey, I'm leaving our daughter in your care, young man, keep it up, but if you do anything to make her unhappy, you got it, you understand, I'm pretty much saying to you, right? As Uryu just sits and thinks here about this in the present, and just thinks oh yeah, that's right. I was one who told Yae to abandon her old life. so I have a responsibility to ensure her future happiness. And as Uryu sort of thinking all of this, he's just like really going through deep in his mind, as we see that both Daijiro and Ushiro move over to the side of the table that Uryu is sitting on, and both kneel in front of him, sort of like bow their heads and sort of say like, hey, thank you very much. And Uryu, of course, is like, whoa, like what are you two doing, right? As Daijiro just says like, hey, you changed Reiko? No. You changed Yahe's life and fate for the better. And Ushio just says like, hey, the two of us could never make her happy like you can, pretty much, right? And just says like, hey, we asked you here to express our thanks. We are truly grateful to you. As we see these two are just kneeling in front of Uryu, and Uryu's like very taken aback again in this moment of like, these two people who he's known as arguably not the best parents. Like, if we're looking at all of the parents here in Amagami Sister, like, definitely Yahe's parents have been the most redeemed. Like, Asi's parents are terrible people. Yuna's parents were some of the best salt-of-the-earth folks around who just had a very tragic end to them. And of course, Yahe's parents started off as like this big and antagonistic force, but all, of course, here throughout the series have really come around to become better people here in the moment. Here we also just see a little bit of an image of Makoto and, of course, her grandfather Takeda, also just looking in here in the moment, just having a big smile on their face towards Uryu here in a moment of like, hey, he's done all of this great good for the Ichijoji family here, and also for Yahe's sake. As here in the moment, of course, we see that Daijiro and Ushiro are just kneeling in front of Uryu, but Uryu just says like, hey, no, what are you guys saying? I'm the one who should be expressing my gratitude to you guys. He just says like, hey, I'm only able to focus on my career and my dreams because of this rich, fulfilling life I have, all because Yahe is there with me. Thank you for causing Yahe and I to meet and allowing her destiny to be tied to mine. As we just see that Daijiro and Ushio sort of like give each other a little bit of a glance, as Daijiro just says like, hey, oh, is that so? Well, we are very glad to hear that, right? As we then see the two of them really just get up close to Uryu and just is like, well, with all of that out of the way, let's party together like there is no tomorrow. And Ushio's like, hey, eat up and drink your fill, young man, pretty much. And I love Uryu's reaction of like, I understand this is really fun and all, but I would rather celebrate like there is a tomorrow to go to. Like, I've got things I gotta do. I gotta pick which one of these girls I'm gonna marry. Like, if I'm gonna pick your daughter to marry, I have to think about it, which means I've gotta be awake and conscious for tomorrow. So I just love the little bit of a panel that we get here where Uryu's like, you know what, maybe I am just good, all things considered, right? But as all of this happens, we now cut outside to, of course, later in the night, where we see that Makoto is just saying like, hey, where we see that Makoto Senpai has driven Uryu back home to the Amagami Shrine. And Uryu's like, hey, thank you very much for the ride, Senpai. I really hope it wasn't too far out of your way, right? And Makoto just is like, hey, it's no problem whatsoever. I mean, we were the ones who invited you out anyway, so it's only like fair that we drive you back home, right? As Makoto is just like, hey, why do you look so disappointed here in the moment, right? And Uryu just is like, well, I'm sort of thinking about all of this stuff, and I was really expecting them to lecture me about Yahe and demand I take responsibility to marry her, right? And Makoto just says like, hey, those two know very much better to restrict Yahe's life choices like that. And they want her to decide you and her own futures, and I very much feel the same. But Makoto just says like, hey, but maybe we are a little invested in the destiny you two share. And Uryu sort of like thinks about all of this and sort of goes back inside to the house after sort of hearing this proclamation from Makoto being like, hey, we are invested in both you and Yahe, and that's honestly just why we care so much here in the grand scheme of things. And we cut inside to later in the night, we see the moon's out in full glory and greatness. It's a full moon, that's what I mean, right? As we see that Uryu is just laying in his room, and we see that he recently has gotten a necklace to put on, pretty much, right? As we see what he has, he's just got a simple little chain, and on the chain, we see that he is holding on to the ring that, of course, Yahe gave him as a couple's ring last chapter, right? As we see that he's just sitting here looking at it, laying on his back and sort of admiring it while it's still around his neck and just holding it up right in front of his eyes. And Uryu's just like, man, the destiny we share, huh? But of course, as he's doing this, we hear a knock on the door. We hear a good ol'. on the door behind him. I honestly don't know if that's what it sounds like, being to, like, these are, like, those sliding doors. I don't know where you get a good knocking point. Like, I don't know how sturdy the wood is next to it, or, like, if it'd be more of, like, a... That's a very bad knock. You know, we're gonna stop knocking for the whole bit here, pretty much, right? But either way, we see the Yae now just is like, hey, Uryu, is this a good time? Like, hey, if you're not too busy, can you come by my room for a bit, right? And Uryu turns around and is like, oh, yeah, sure, Yae, right? As he gets up and walks over to her room, right? Uryu's like, hey, Yae, like, what's all this about, right? As he also walks in and sees that her room is spontaneously clean. Like, there's not a thing on the ground anywhere, right? And of course, we see the Yae looks behind her to, of course, where Uryu is, and flashes a little bit of a smile here in a moment, as she also walks over and turns off the central light in her room. And Uryu's like, oh no, what is this, right? As he's just like, oh, hey, what's going on? Like, why'd you turn out the lights, Yae, right? As Uryu's like, no, don't tell me. She wants me over for a midnight thirst, pretty much. But we see here in a moment that we get a little bit of a joke where, like, Yae comes over and laughs a little bit like, ha ha ha, and sort of reaches towards Uryu, but we see that she's actually not reaching towards him. She's reaching towards a little bit of a device that she's built that is currently sitting on her floor. She goes over and turns it on, as we see this little bit of it's a polygonal shape. It's in the shape of a D12, that's what I know it is. I don't know what a 12-sided die is called. What is a 12-sided? 12-sided... polygon name. What is this thing called? It's in the shape of a dodecagon, right? But we see this is pretty much sitting here on the ground, and Yae is very fascinated with it, right? And she just says like, hey, look at this, isn't it beautiful? It's a mini planetarium star projector I just built for myself, right? And Uryu's like, I mean, yeah, it's very pretty, but like, why? And we see that Yae's just like, hey, well, the truth is, I really want to run a planetarium store. And Uryu's like, I'm sorry, a planetarium store? As pretty much Yae just gives the explanation of like, hey, recently I've been really getting into a bunch of these various craft videos online, especially all those ones where people go and make these little star projectors, right? Different people switch things up by like cutting out special shapes or adding colored lights, and I was just really impressed by all the creativeness that was going on there. And of course, that's when the inspiration hit me, and I wanted to make one myself too, pretty much, right? And Uryu just thinks like, okay, so you just went down a tiny niche rabbit hole community and ended up where we are now, pretty much, right? And Uryu just thinks to himself like, man, like, I really can't believe whenever Yae turned that light out, my mind went to like such bad places. Well, I'm just glad that she had some very wholesome intentions at the end of the day, right? But he sits down on the floor and just is like, hey, still, this is just, like, really fun, you know? Like, you shouldn't let all these various things influence you like a little kid, Yae. And Yae just gives a little bit of her laugh off here in a moment, just going like, ee-hee-hee-hee-hee, right? But she just says, like, hey, I just feel like if I want to do something, even just a little, I may as well give it, like, a proper try, you know? And she just says, hey, I was always so afraid of the vastness of space when I was a child. But now I think about every little thing that I want to do, and they all shine like stars in my mind. I like having a bunch of different dreams. It's way more fun that way. And here we see a really nice panel of both Uryu and Yae sitting on the ground, the little, what was this 12-sided thing called again? The dodecagon sitting in front of them. And the walls of Yae's room just turning into this vast starscape. We see nebulas in the background and all of the stars just illuminating the night sky behind them. And Uryu's just like, oh yeah, I mean, well, if you're enjoying yourself, then why not? But we just see that Yae's like, well, hey, I've got plenty of other dreams too. Like, what if I was a live streamer and I streamed myself painting online? Or what if I opened up my own drawing school? Of course, I still want to marry you, Uryu. And hey, I've always wanted to try being a translator. And Uryu's just like, oh yeah, your streams are really as numerous as the stars around us. And then he sort of realizes, and he's like, oh, wait a second, you just snuck one in about me and you getting married, right? And we see the Yae's like, oh, is that a problem? And Uryu's like, oh, you little, right? But we just see that Yae's looking very cute here in a moment. As eventually Uryu just says like, hey, so are you just telling me that I'm just one measly star in a whole galaxy? As Yae just retorts with like, hey, but don't you know that some stars shine brighter than others? as we just get a little bit of narration from Uryu's perspectives, he just thinks like, hey, Yae does really remind me of the night sky. I never know what she'll do next. I just get pulled along by her gravity. But when I spend time with her dazzling and free spirit, every day is filled with excitement and wonder. I always want to be by her side so I can watch her shine. And I'll be the brightest supernova in her starry sky. As we get, once again, a beautiful panel of both Uryu and Yae sitting on the ground, the Planetarium dodecagon sitting in front of them, and just the vastness of the stars and the sky around them. The view of space with so many small pinpointed dreams sitting around the area. It's just a really beautiful panel that we get here in this double page spread to very much end off the chapter. It's just so beautiful, right? But this is not the very end of the chapter. The end of the chapter, we got one more page left, as we just see that both Yae and Uryu are like really looking towards each other in the eyes, pretty much. As Uryu just thinks like, hey, who cares about destiny or responsibility? They have nothing to do with it. These are just my own honest feelings. And that's where we end this chapter, number 178 of Tying the Knot with an Amagami Sister. Now, one of the reasons that I like this so much is, of course, I'm not currently in college right now. It's summer break while I'm recording this video, so it's like, hey, I'm not currently doing any schoolwork, but I am a big fan of astronomy. That was even one of the first classes I took in college, was like, hey, I have to do a science inquiry, is what we call it at my college, for our general education courses, and I've always enjoyed space, the stars, and all of that since I was a young kid. And really, during college, I'm like, you know what, I'll go through the science inquiry, and I'll take the one about stars, space, the galaxy, and all of that stuff. And I did, and I've completed those 2 courses now, along with the labs and all that, our various stuff. And those really made me realize how much I really enjoy astronomy, leading me to pretty much make astronomy my minor in college. Of course, I'm still going for a broadcasting degree, so I can be on radio, television, all that other stuff as my major. But as my minor, I'm like, you know what, why not just sit down and do astronomy? And it's really just those talks, like all the ideas of like all of the various stars in the sky. And why not sit down and treat every single different sky, or every single different star. And why not sit down and treat every different star in the sky as a different dream that you can have and achieve? It's just a really beautiful way that Yae puts it in this chapter, and it just really emotionally resonated with me. I remember just sitting down here. I mean, I don't know how long I've been recording this video for. Let me just open up the phone and see real quick. I've been recording this video for a solid 19 minutes, but like 20 minutes ago when I was going through and reading this chapter, it really just hit me again of how beautiful of a message that Yae has in this chapter. And of course, the beginning of the chapter is nice and all. Like, I do all liked all the stuff with Daijiro and Ushio both being like, hey, thank you for telling our daughter pretty much what she could be and experiencing all of this stuff in our lives pretty much. I do like that moment. And also, the whole moment between Makeda and Uryu is also nice and all. But really what makes this chapter is this final half where Uryu's just sitting in his room, looking up at the ring Yae gave him, of course, thinking about his relationship to her and what that means to him. And of course, Yae coming into the room, bringing him in, and the whole idea of look at all of these stars in the sky and all the dreams that they allow us to have. And of course, one of my dreams is to be with you, Uryu. I just really love the moment that we get here. Now, my one small gripe here is like, okay, everybody pretty much knows that supernovas are whenever stars explode, and like, hey, they're the biggest, most brightest things in the sky. I mean, it's how we track distances out to the very edge of the universe, is because like the supernovas produce about the same amount of light every single time there's a supernova. It's something to do with their light curve and pretty much just how they're created. So it's like, supernovas are very, very bright, and it's a good thing that we know them and they're very similar so we can like find out more about the universe. But the whole idea of Uryu saying like, hey, I'll be the brightest supernova in her sky, I want to just imagine this is just the idea of like, hey, the author of the series against Naito Marcy, or Marcy Naito, whichever way you say it. I think Marto Naisi is how we'd say it over here in the English world, and then of course in Japanese, wherever like your surname comes first and your family name, it'd be more of like Naito Marcy, but either way, follow that out of the way. I want to imagine that this is just Naito Marcy, or I won't imagine this is just Marcy Naito not fully understanding, like, the whole idea of, like, hey, supernovas are only around for a short amount of time before they fade out completely, and this not being foreshadowing to be like, hey, Yae is not going to win. It's one of those things where, like, hey, I recently covered a series called Navigatori here on the YouTube channel. It's a small series that ran in Jump Plus. And the whole idea there is we had this very random thing of like, hey, this star or this planet that's around Earth is only like, I think it was half a light year away from Earth, which isn't very far at all, pretty much. And just the whole idea of all of this going on here is just like, yeah, it probably means that they didn't know much about space as they were really hoping to know here in a moment. But either way, it's just one of these interesting things of, hey, is this slight foreshadowing of the whole supernova interstellar sky stuff, or is it just sort of more of just a Marcy Naito doesn't quite know what they're talking about when it comes to space and all of that, right? Either way, this was a very brilliant chapter of tying off an Amagami Sister, and I just loved the end of the chapter, all of the dreams in the starry sky, and just loved it for sure. But yeah, follow that away. Thank you guys so very much for watching this video on tying it off an Amagami Sister, chapter number 178. If you want to hear my thoughts on some other chapters of tying off an Amagami Sister, there'll be a playlist link down in the description box of this video and also on the end card of this video. If you enjoyed this video, hey, maybe you wouldn't mind going and just checking out all the other content I have on the channel, and maybe if you really enjoyed it, maybe you want to consider subscribing to the channel. It's a nice little thing that boosts my ego every time I see that number increase incrementally, pretty much. Hey, it's a pretty cool thing, you know? But yeah, follow all the way. Thank you guys so very much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys next time for Tying It Off an Amagami Sister, chapter number 179. Again, this was chapter number 178, how tying the skies together stars. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma 231 in a very starry sky with millions of dreams, signing out.